Hello, this is Angie Yingst, and you're listening to Centered, grounded conversations about the metaphysical. Blessed October, it's Angie Yingst. I'm here with your October tarot and earth medicine reading. I love October. It is my favorite time of year. The veil is thin. I love when the fog rolls in the morning and I wake up to this spectacularly creepy autumn morning and I drink my coffee, and I love the crisp coolness of the air, and I can pull out all my Halloween things and decorate and honor the dead. And I love that about October because October builds to the beautiful thinning veil energy of Samhain, the third and final harvest festival of the year. So we start with August 1st, which is Lammas or Lunazda, and then we move to Mabon or autumn equinox, and then the final one is Samhain. And so we kind of move through these harvest times. So as we're building to October 31st, which is the beginning of winter in the witch's year, or the wheel of the year, when we consider the wheel of the year, I should say, Samhain is kind of both the end and the beginning of a year. And it marks that final harvest where we're actually harvesting animals and harvesting meat. So there's a lot of lore with Samhain, and I don't necessarily need to get into all the Samhain stuff, but I just want to say this. So many cultures celebrate the dead at this time of the year. Halloween, which was a secular holiday that was borrowed from Samhain, Dia de los Muertos, All Souls Day, the Feast of the Dead, they're all connected, right? This is the most holy of days for those who study earth-based medicine because the veil is thin. We're making a connection to our ancestors. We're making a connection to spirit. We're making a connection to fairies. This is a time of magic, divination, spirit work. And this is a time with a lot of sort of connectedness to the earth. Okay. So astrologically, October has a lot of energy. And I always joke, and if you've ever taken a class with me, both in tarot or like doing my ethics class, I will use that as a phrase when I don't want to say, holy crap, what the hell's going on? So I'd be like, that has a lot of energy to it. So I'm not saying it's all bad energy. In fact, we have so much good medicine this month that I'm really excited to share with you. But we are ending a number of retrograde cycles, but we are starting the month in them, right? We all know Mercury's in retrograde, but it's going to continue until October 2nd. And then we're in like a shadow Mercury retrograde period as we're kind of coming out of it. So, we're just not out of the clear all the way with Mercury. Pluto turns direct on October 8th, and it's going to be in Capricorn, and it has been in retrograde since the 29th. So there's more, but let's talk about like our full moon, which comes on October 9th. This is a full moon in Aries. And this is a time to really honor us. Aries is the baby of the astrological calendar. So it's the first sign. And in that way, it tends to be like wonderfully aware of its own emotional needs and also, prioritizes them. So the full moon in Aries is called the hunter moon, and that's because the brightness of this moon, or some people call it like the super moon or whatever, allows hunters to stalk prey at night by the light of the full moon. It's also time when like the deer are at its fattest from the summer, and so it's really good hunting time. That dovetails nicely with what used to happen on Samhain, which was the animals would be slaughtered, right, for the winter. And, just talking about that, because I'll talk about it more, I'll do a Samhain reading, but when we talk about that choice, like which animals are you slaughtering, which are you going to feed all winter? Now, that seems kind of odd to us who go and buy meat at a butcher or at a supermarket or a farmer's market or whatever. But you had to make decisions like that. Which animal is going to be the food, and which one are you going to continue to take from your reserves to feed? So it was big energy. So, hunting was a great, great thing to be doing. So the hunter is a wonderful archetype to be using at this full moon in Aries, of thinking about like what hunters do, what hunting societies do. They never take more than they can use because they didn't have places to store it, or, they didn't want to waste. So they used every single part of the animal. And there's abundance in seeing possibilities in all parts that you're bringing in, including things that feel like setbacks. Remember that the hunter also like leads themselves, like they go by instinct. They go by watching the subtle changes in the environment. So that's very, very intuitive work to be doing. So the hunter archetype can be really lovely to kind of work with. And I would say, a nice compass to kind of like guide yourself through the month, is I'm only taking what I can use and I'm leaving the rest, or I'm going to like see how I can recycle this information. So in the later part of the month, the Sun and Venus both go into Scorpio on October 23rd. And then Mercury also goes into Scorpio on the 29th. And Scorpio is a water sign. It's very intuitive. It's passionate. It's got lots of really deep emotions, though Scorpios don't like to show it. So these things are like, we have those deep emotions, but we don't always want to be vulnerable with them when we go through this. And remember, that's going to be in the Sun, meaning your expression, Venus, your relationships, and Mercury, your communication. So we're kind of thinking about like our intuitiveness, our passions, our emotions in all of those areas. And then also the feeling of not wanting to be as vulnerable. Saturn goes direct in Aquarius on October 23rd. Now, Saturn's been retrograde since June 4th. And in astrology, Saturn is like the lord of structure, discipline, authority, karma. And so this is like a planet that people love to hate. Saturn rules like Capricorn and Aquarius. You may have heard that there was a ton of retrograde planets, and this is just one. And what exactly do retrogrades mean? They're illusions, right? It's kind of like when you're at a stoplight in a car and the other car like gently moves forward, like so gently, it's not like it goes and you can tell, but it may feel like you're sliding back, and it's really like you actually have that feeling of movement. That's kind of how retrogrades are. So they're not actually moving backwards, but they make it feel like you are. So, astrologers think of this as a time that feels challenging or it slows down, but it doesn't have to be horrible. Like retrogrades can be periods of time that we can really think about that area, wherever it's retrograde. So retrogrades are introspective times where when the planet's direct, it's an outrospective time, meaning like we go outward. And part of the reason Mercury gets such a bad rap is because, first of all, it happens 3 times a year. And secondly, it garners the way we communicate with people and like just little blips and stuff like that happen. Now, before you start cursing about Saturn going retrograde, you're through it, right? Like you end this retrograde period on the 23rd. So one of the things that can be really good about a Saturn retrograde is that Saturn's a really strict teacher, and it teaches you about rules and boundaries and responsibility. So just because you are learning those lessons doesn't mean that it is all bad. Like you're actually learning lessons and integrating it and all of that stuff. So while it may have been a difficult time since June, you also can kind of push yourself to that idea of like, I am going to use every single second of the Saturn retrograde period that I've learned. So if you journal, you may want to look back like what's been happening over the last 4 months and see if you can understand the lessons that Saturn's trying to teach you. Because if you do and if you integrate them, you can like literally change your life. And I just use literally in, well, whatever. I'm not going to apologize for using literally that way. All right, so let's talk about the new moon on the 25th. There is a new moon in Scorpio. There is a solar eclipse in Scorpio. So both of these are amazing catalysts for like rebirth, for changing our lives, for reinventing things. Scorpio is awesome at release and rebirth. In the major arcana, Scorpio is associated with the death card. So, you know, if you know, you know. But we're going to look at that new moon as a time to start fresh again, as always. And for a time that starts to get darker in the northern hemisphere, we have a really interesting tarot card coming forth. So the tarot card of the month is the Sun. And that fits really nicely with the energy of rebirth because we have a lot of clarity when the Sun comes. When we work with the Sun, we work with the numerology of 19 because that's the number, the number of the trump, the key of 19 in the major arcana. So it comes with some other energies because you can continue to break down 19. So 1 plus 9 equals 10. So you're also working with the key of 10, the Wheel of Fortune, and then 1 plus 0, the key, 10. You add that up and you get the Magician. That's the key of 1. So these powerful, strong energies can kind of shed more insight and tap in to that Sun energy. So like, for example, if you're working with like trying to understand something going on at work, you're getting some more clarity with the Sun, but the Magician comes in as an idea of like bringing in all your elements to kind of manifest what you need and what you want. So you can think about integrating the idea of karma and fate and acceptance into the Sun energy when you're thinking of the Wheel of Fortune. This is a really good time to change things. So the Sun illuminates confusion, fear, darkness, particularly around our shadow work. So when we have so many retrogrades, I think the Sun's a really great card to bring forward in a post-retrograde period because it illuminates all of the confusion and the shadows, right? It comes right after the moon. So it's really good for kind of tapping into light, happiness, joy, and enthusiasm. And it's a card like if you ask a health question, for example, this is the card of good health. It's the card of success. It's the card of clarity. And maybe that's the most important aspect of the Sun is clarity because it shows you all the confusing parts of your journey and brings like that light. I've been using this analogy a lot, maybe because I'm teaching tarot, I think about it a lot, but with shadow, when we're in a dark room and we, look at a chair and it looks like somebody's sitting in it, we get terribly scared. But when we turn on the light and see it's just a pile of clothing, it illuminates the confusion that we have. So, when we have stuff that's confusing, it takes up brain space, right? Like when you are talking to someone and you don't understand where they're coming from, or they haven't called you back, haven't texted you back, it takes up brain space. So clarity helps to bring us up and out of the dark. It comes after the moon, just as day comes after night. And it shows a child with arms extended, heart open, and that's kind of the energy that the Sun asks you to bring forward. So our path feels clear because we're releasing blockages. We radiate joy and gratitude and energy. And it isn't because of the Sun that we shine, but it's because we've gone through that moon period. Remember, this is the 19. So it's 19 out of 21. Well, we're not counting the full, but you've gone through like 18 other lessons, and then you're coming to the Sun. So part of the Sun energy is that you've done all this deep introspective work. So the Sun doesn't come with the first card. It comes at the 19th card because we've been through retrogrades, trauma work, we've been through blockages, we've been through like losing everything, we've been through hardships. So, when we work with the Sun, we're kind of at that point where we're ready to accept abundance, we're ready to accept lessons, we're ready to fully understand what we've been through. So, some of the work of the Sun is just being able to accept the gifts and allowing ourselves to receive. We must acknowledge our readiness to open the door. We must feel worthy of happiness and joy. So we notice when the sun comes in and everything's happy, happy, joy, joy, the wound around joy comes up. The wound around happiness comes up. Our shadow cells kind of rear up when we're working with the sun. So we need to say, yes, I deserve happiness. Yes, I deserve healing. Yes, I deserve to be healed. Yes, I deserve joy, laughter, lightness. So we have to stand in that sun energy, which is masculine. It's a solar place, and it has a conviction of our deservingness and strength, right? It is entitled and ready to receive. It's ready to have abundance, okay? And a lot of us struggle with that. So part of the strength of the conviction comes that in times of shadow, we're doing all this tough work around unhealed aspects of the self that are dark. We can deal with that chaos. We can deal with mistakes and setbacks and working hard and, running our ass into the ground. But because we're always fighting. We're fighting for happiness. We're fighting for peace. And when we get it, especially if we've had trauma and childhood wounds where we weren't allowed to be children, we don't quite know what to do with happiness, peace, and contentedness. And that's when we kind of start chaotic friendships or get into a relationship with someone who isn't safe. We have to kind of notice, like, what do we do when we're uncomfortable with happiness? Do we create chaos so that we know what to do with that? We know how to fight. So, some of this work is around our hypervigilance, our trauma, and just being able to accept joy. And so we go back to that work of joy that seems so easy. It's like bewildering to people. Why can't you just feel joy? It's because, you've come to associate those things with something bad happening. So when we get to this place where we're seeing the sun and accepting joy and contentedness, we just have to sit with it. Just like we sit with grief when it comes or anger when it comes, we don't try to shift out of it. We don't tell ourselves another story about it. We simply feel it in our body. So when you start to feel happiness, we know that's just as transitory as unhappiness, but we get to sit with it and we get to shed the protection and padding and armor that we have worn and become like that little child on the sun riding the horse, being vulnerable, bare, ready to share. So that's the sun medicine. Just have the courage and strength to walk with it. So our plant medicine is zinnia, which comes forth for lightheartedness. We still have zinnia in Pennsylvania, which I love. It's native to the Southwest, Mexico, Central America, but zinnia is a really important part of ecosystems where they grow. It has synergy with all those pollinators and wild animals and insects. It's a tough flower, okay? It is meant to endure. And so it has spontaneous endurance. From youth to old age, the zinnia endures and continues to bloom. That's why we still have zinnia blossoms. It's also believed that zinnia is the one that comes forth with joyous endurance. They're happy to bloom. Zinnia also will bloom in the hottest hot of the summer and the coolest cool of the autumn. Comes in lots of different colors. It has amazing energy and it has amazing light. For our stone medicine, we're working with garnet, almandine garnet, which cultivates a sense of safety and abundance. It works with the root chakra, the sacral chakra, and the heart chakra. And it helps manifest our desires. It strengthens our resolve, and it's just naturally very protective. So it's good for boundaries and security. So it's a wonderful stone for maintaining relationships. It's a stone of abundance and protection. The next stone is moonstone, which is a feldspar, has hardness like 6.5. It's really hard to sort of show moonstone in a picture because it has the chatoyance that's really just uniquely moonstone. It is considered the goddess stone, the stone of the full moon. There's mystery, intuition, dreams, insight. It is a stone that works with the sacral, the third eye, the crown. So moon energy is equated with the feminine. So it's interesting to get it when we have this masculine sun energy. I think we're dealing with deep emotions, and the sun is just kind of helping us really like take hold of those things. Um, so that next stone that came up this month is peach selenite. And peach selenite, so most of you are aware that selenite and satin spar are both from the gypsum family, along with like desert rose and alabaster. They both have the same or similar compound formula. But selenite is clear and transparent, whereas satin spar is fibrous and milky. So they truly are like brothers from another mother. True clear selenite is rarely available. It's very common to see satin spar being sold as selenite on the market. Peach selenite looks like satin spar, but it's peach colored. And that's neither here nor there, but I just want to say that peach selenite is a wonderful ally in the sacral chakra. That's where we do the big 3 C's. We clean, cleanse, and clear, because peach selenite is the stone of release. And for women and those with wombs, we often hold our fear and pain in the sacral. So this is where we hold our trauma. So it's a really good one, along with the moonstone and the garnet, to really change and release that energy. So for our animal guide this month, I thought bat was going to come forward. I've been hearing about bats, seeing a lot of bats, but instead the turtle comes forward. And I pulled Maya Toll's Bestiary deck. It doesn't have a ton of cards, and I don't usually go for it because it doesn't, but I just felt drawn to it. And so Sea Turtle came forward. And Sea Turtle is like a really beautiful guide. I love that we're working with water energy as we move into Scorpio and as we're in the West in autumn. Sea turtles impart like just a beautiful wisdom and energy. For many cultures, turtle is a huge important guide and said to be the ancestors that carry messages from generation to generation. There are many traditions that hold the qualities of turtle to be like serenity and patience and endurance and peace. In some native traditions, turtle is the oldest symbol of Mother Earth, reminding us to honor the earth. The Iroquois believe they're descended from turtle that got rid of their shell and that they rest on the back of great turtles. So many tribes have turtle clans, and Eastern religions use turtle to balance opposite principles like heaven and earth. So the turtle, who seems to move as slow as the earth itself, travels its own path at its own time, which is kind of the medicine of turtle. But sea turtle doesn't have that same slowness when they're in the water. They're quick and joyful and graceful, and that's the interesting part of their medicine. Earth people, humans, think that turtle is slow because when they see turtle, turtle is on earth. But water is her true home. So sea turtle works with those that also feel displaced, like they don't fit in with their home, and that people see them one way, and when they're in their own element, time, and place, they feel like themselves. So we work with turtle for some of this medicine too. So when on earth and solid ground, turtle shows us that sometimes we need to slow down. That like slow and steady wins the race. There's medicine for turtle of the sea and turtle in the land. So sea turtles also travel large expanses, sometimes thousands of miles, to return home to reproduce and lay her eggs. She doesn't stay with her babies. She lays the eggs and then she fertilizes them herself because she stores sperm from her mate for up to 3 years. So she takes her time having babies. And when she does, she then returns to the sea. So the sea turtle represents that strength and endurance, which are useful qualities when faced with difficult situations. Turtle can survive a long time out of the water. They have an ability to store moisture, heat. So, turtle's great for inner resources, perseverance, coming out a stronger person, and kind of working with all that energy we've already talked about. So thank you so much. If you're part of my membership group, you'll be getting that turtle journey by the 10th of the month. For the rest of you, I hope you enjoyed this, and please send me any questions at Angie@themoonandstone.com.
Thanks for listening to Centered with me, Angie Yingst. If you'd like to send me a question or comment about this show or any shows, you can send them to Angie@themoonandstone.com.